meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. The tank was first developed by the British and used to some effectiveness during World War I. Tank technology spread quickly and both belligerents had used tanks by the end of the war. And it's not hard to see how automotive technology played a major part in the conceptualizing and development of the tank as a weapon of war. But what was the extent that the car played in the history of the tank? Let's take a look. In 1915, Winston Churchill was the First Lord of the Admiralty, and trench warfare was in full swing. The weapons of war had become so efficient, the battle lines became stalemates and the casualties were astronomically high. Churchill established a new study group, the Landships Committee, to research the issue and find a way to break the stalemates on all major fronts. By the middle of 1915, all of the major combatants in the war were building armored and armed cars. These were proving very useful in logistics, fast attack missions, and anti-partisan operations, but were not able to cross the trenches and break the enemy lines. Something else had to be done, and the Landships Committee reached out to a company that built agricultural machines and traction engines, the firm William Foster and Company. Their head design engineers, William Trenton and Walter Wilson, decided to try using tracks that ran the whole length of the vehicle, which were provided by the Bullock Tractor Company in Chicago. Powered by a T-head six-cylinder gas-powered engine provided by British Daimler, producing a bit over 100 horsepower, the final prototype weighed in about 16 tons and could make good about 3.5 miles an hour. A pedestrian pace, yes, but that's about how fast infantry can march, so that was good enough. Nicknamed Little Willie, the prototype was tested and improvements were made. The lessons learned led to the development of the first true battle-ready heavy tank, the British Mark I. First seeing action at the Battle of the Somme, tanks redefined warfare and the technology behind them grew rapidly. Yet these first British tanks had little relation to cars beyond their engines and transmission designs. They were simply too heavy to be built on a car chassis and with automotive suspension. But there was a tank of World War I that was light enough to be more car than tank, the Renault FT. Louis Renault had been working on a tank design himself since 1915, and his plan was for a light tank. Small, fast, and nimble, his idea was to use them more for reconnaissance than frontline fighting, though they would end up in that role as well by the end of the war. Renault kept the weight of the vehicle to under 7 tons, and the drive chain was what you would expect from a Renault of the time. 4-cylinder T-head producing about 40 horsepower, 4-speed sliding pinion transmission, and a suspension system that was sprung much the same that a Landaulet used, just a bit heavier. Renault went to the Holt Company for the tracks, and his tank design was the first to have a rotating turreted gun. The FT was small and could reach about 5 miles an hour on a good day, was easy to operate, and although the design did have some trouble with engine cooling, proved reasonably reliable. Essentially what Renault did was to design a tank that could be built by a car manufacturer in their factory without having to do extreme retooling, though the whole tracks instead of tires thing did, of course, require significant assembly line modifications. Hats off to Louis, for this was a great design and would influence tanks across the world and continues to do so to this day. The Renault FT was the first tank to be built based on automotive technology and was produced under license by Fiat, Ford, and other allied nations that had a robust automotive industry. Tank technology moved on from there and became a discipline of its own. Yet it was not the British, but the French that first made tanks that really were based on cars. And that car-based tank became the basis of tank design for the next 100 years. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.